My name is Jenny McLaren, and this is my Cluster Headache Awareness Project.
Have you ever had a headache? Of course you have. Who hasn't? Have you ever heard of a suicide headache? There is a medical condition called cluster headache. Researchers have nicknamed it the suicide headache. Cluster headache is the worst pain known to medical science. Here are some sources to validate if you don't take my word for it. Healthbean.com, news.discovery.com, alearned.com, nhs.uk, Dr. Peter Goadsby, and Dr. Todd Rosen. In fact, Google the worst pain known to medical science. A list of cluster headache sites will appear. The pain of a cluster headache attack is said to far surpass that of a migraine headache. Some patients experience both cluster headache attacks and migraine attacks. Some patients describe the pain as worse than childbirth. The first time a sufferer experiences an attack, the result is frightening. Many think they are dying or experiencing a brain tumor. Here are some quotes from patients about their first attack. I was 20 years old and didn't even know pain like that existed. I was absolutely terrified and thought I was going to die. I dialed 911 because I thought my brain was bleeding. Thought I was having a brain aneurysm, bloody terrified. I thought I was dying from an aneurysm and had a panic attack. It felt like demons had burrowed into my head. Proper diagnosis is often difficult to obtain, and finding the right treatment is frustrating. Here are some more quotes from patients. I went to the ER, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. 59 daily attacks, and 6 doctors later, I was finally diagnosed. It took 11 years for my diagnosis. I had cluster headache episodes every 18 months, and about my 4th episode, I was diagnosed. The pain induced by a cluster headache attack is so intense, in some cases, even morphine is not enough. Cluster headaches come in cycles. The average is 8 to 12 weeks. However, some cycles have been known to last over a year. During an active cycle, a cluster headache patient can experience up to 8 attacks per day. Each attack lasts between 20 minutes to 3 hours. Attacks are often followed by a dull, lingering pain known as the residual headache. During each attack, the patient suffers an immense amount of ongoing, immobilizing pain to one side of the head and behind the eye. While attacks are often clockwork, they come without warning. The frequency and intensity of attacks increases as the cycle progresses. Oftentimes, the sufferer is struck down without a warning. Cycles are vicious and subject to change at any time. Patients live in constant fear that at any moment they could instantly be struck with the most excruciating pain known to man. Cluster headaches never stop. When a cycle ends, the patient enters a remission period, a pain-free period between cycles, only to await the next impending cycle. Some patients don't get a remission period. Episodic cluster headaches are diagnosed when the patient experiences 1 to 8 attacks daily for weeks on end, followed by a remission period. Chronic cluster headaches are diagnosed when a patient experiences multiple attacks for a year or longer with little or no pain-free periods. Chronic patients may have high cycles and low cycles where the frequency and intensity of their attacks fluctuate. Doctors prescribe preventative medications, abortive medications, and painkillers to their patients, but the pain never goes away. Triptans are a cluster headache patient's best friend and worst enemy at the same time. Triptans stop the pain almost immediately after consumption. However, the number of attacks a patient has surpasses the allowed amount of triptans per month per the FDA. Triptans can actually prolong a cycle, and tolerance to them builds quickly. Treatment is trial and error. There is no cure for cluster headache. There is not a universal treatment that works for every patient. Each cycle is unique to the sufferer. Cluster headache patients have no escape. They often contemplate extreme measures to find relief during an attack, even though relief is an unrealistic expectation during attacks. Continuous treatment failure has led to many cluster headache patients to trial and error of their own with illegal substances just to escape the pain. An anonymous survey revealed many sufferers find relief with hallucinogens and marijuana. Medications only shadow the invading pain temporarily. My name is Jenny McLaren. I am a cluster headache patient. I am a graduate student dedicated to researching and raising awareness of cluster headaches and their effects on patients. Distraction is the best coping mechanism to handle the pain. Here are some coping mechanisms I have used to handle the pain of an attack. Pacing, rocking back and forth, squeezing my hands together tightly, ripping toilet paper rolls to shreds, digging my fingernails into the sides of my arms, applying ice packs, squeezing a stress ball, crying, laying on the kitchen floor rolling from side to side. Here is a list of the treatments my doctors have tried. Maxalt MLT, 5 and 10 milligram, Fioricet, dexamethasone, tramadol, scalaxin, naproxen, Topamax, and Percocet. Cluster headache is an invisible chronic illness. Living with an invisible disease means appearing fine to other people on the outside while actually living in fear and pain. This causes a negative stigma about you, which can lead to strains on relationships. This is one reason cluster headache patients are at a higher risk for anxiety, depression, panic attacks than their pain-free counterparts. Between 2005 and 2009, a study was conducted to investigate whether cluster headache was a risk factor for depression. A group of cluster headache patients were monitored along with two other groups, migraine sufferers and patients free from cluster headaches or migraines. The results of the study showed that cluster headache patients had a significantly higher risk for depression than the other two cohorts. 1,134 individuals completed the survey. Suicidal ideations were substantial, occurring in 55% of patients. The same survey explored the personal burden of cluster headaches. 20% of cluster headache patients have lost a job secondary to cluster headache, while another 8% are out of work or on disability, secondary to their headaches. Cluster headache patients are more susceptible to a wide range of mood disorders, anxiety disorders, somatoform disorders, sleep disorders, and adjustment disorders than their pain-free counterparts. While cluster headaches induce feelings of hopelessness, everyone can help by spreading awareness and educating others about cluster headaches. Sometimes, even to live is an act of courage. We can fight the fear of impending attacks together through advocacy and support. Will you join in our crusade? Who will be strong and stand with me?